Life is a voyage. Sometimes it's a planned voyage, sometimes it's an uncharted kaleidoscope. We will learn here at Valentina Design Universe the vicissitudes of Christine Skarbek, author of her book, and we will learn about her adventure in life. Hi, hello everyone. I have here an author that I discovered recently. She's an American. Her name is Christine Skarbek. Welcome, Christine. We will talk
Hi.
about your book. Thank you for coming to the show tonight.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. This is wonderful.
This is going to be fun. So your book title is Confronting Power and Chaos.
Yes.
And the undertitle, I think, is Uncharted Kaleidoscope.
Of my life. Yes.
Okay, tell us why.
Why?
Why?
It's called...
Why is it a kaleidoscope, or Uncharted Kaleidoscope?
Oh, well, because I certainly didn't set out to do much with my life. I was born and raised in a small town in Illinois, and there's not much of anything there other than cornfields and soybean fields. So, you know, it was kind of a very, well, 1950s, not much going on. And so I thought my horizons were rather limited. And it turned out they weren't, really, at the end of the day. I ended up marrying the wrong man, had 4 children with him, and we were running a photography studio. This was in Iowa City, Iowa. And things were just going haywire. And at one point in time, he said, well, you know, you deserve a vacation. You and your friend Gwen should go off to, I don't know, England. Why don't you try England? And so Gwen and I went there. And something very peculiar happened on the way back when I was in Heathrow Airport. And it set me on a path that I needed to discover. There was a woman who had my name before me. The name is Christine Skarbek. It's Skarbek in English.
How do you pronounce it in that's the way you pronounce it in English? American
in
English or British
Skarbek,
English?
S-K-A-R.
Oh, okay, Skarbek. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, she was quite, she was an amazing woman, just an amazing woman. She's probably the most decorated woman of World War II. And she's the only person that I know, either male or female, who distinguished herself or himself not only on the Eastern Front, but the Western Front as well during World War II. And she saved thousands of men's lives without even ever firing a gun. And she wasn't a medical person. The last thing she wanted to do was deal with surgery and all that jazz. No, she was a courier. And she taught me some very remarkable things. After that trip to England with my friend Gwen, I started investigating her life and was able to reach a number of her wartime associates. This is in 1990. And they very sweetly decided to discuss her life with me. And I got to know this woman very, very well. It ended up, my friend in Poland and I, we collaborated on writing a screenplay, a biopic about her, and that is now getting some traction out in Hollywood. We might be able to actually make a movie. This would be kind of cool, because this woman has been sort of like my guardian angel all of my life. And she taught me many important things I didn't know anything about. The power structure. I was not interested in, feminism, chauvinism, all those isms. I was just going to be a reporter. I was just going to be a journalist. And I got sidetracked when I got married, got into public relations, and with my now ex-husband. And I was running his business as his business manager. So I never got to use my journalism degree really until I got to go to Poland. This is in 2009, 2010. And
so let me ask you, excuse me if I interrupt you. So why do you say that in your life you felt like you were always a spectator and not the prime moving force?
Well, a journalist isn't supposed to be a prime moving force. She's supposed to basically take notes and report things as she sees them evolve and develop. And I was never one to try to want to be in the center of any spotlight. I went into radio actually when I got out of college with my French degree, and this was before I got my master's degree in journalism. So I just basically thought of myself as a print journalist or a journalist on radio. I did not like cameras at all.
Right.
So
but did you feel like that in your private life as well, that you were not?
Yes.
That you were not you were the spectator and not the prime moving force.
I'm definitely not. I'm not an alpha. But I do know how to now negotiate my way out of problems. Right. Our eldest daughter, this is after our divorce, she developed OCD when she was about 12 years old. And nobody knew anything about OCD, and we had to do quite a lot of digging to figure out what was going on with her, and it turns out it was a hormonal imbalance in her case in any event. Power, that's a feature in my title. So when I needed help, I turned to the state of Iowa and was given a social worker that was not going to help me. He decided that he needed to put my daughter in what's called a PMIC center, which stands for a Psychological Medical Institution for Children. So anyway, that was the last place she needed to be, absolutely needed to be. And basically the state took my daughter above and beyond my objections and her counselor's objections and her doctor's objections. And the judge just saw in his favor. And so I was given a court-appointed lawyer, and he said, it's going to take about 6 to 8 months before she gets come home. And I said, you're wrong. Wow. You're definitely wrong. I will have her out of there in 6 weeks or less. Watch what I can do. So I ended up, as it turned out, blackmailing the governor of the state of Iowa. And it was election year. And I just simply wrote him a letter saying, this is the situation. This is what my daughter and I witnessed at the facility. It was not a good place for her. It's not a good fit for her. And since it's election year, I will take this to the media if you have a problem.
Good for you. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, his attorney called me up the next day. Oh, please take your daughter back. please, 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 please. And so that's how I ended up being able to take my kids to the UK and Ireland to meet some more associates that Christina's life led to. And I got to interview them while giving my kids a very
Yeah.
eye-opening, world. I mean, expanding their horizons.
Right.
They needed to know that there was a bigger world out there than Iowa City in any event. So the bottom line is that's one of the situations that Christina basically guided me through that turmoil, and very much helped me. I always figured that, this is a woman who can speak to people today because of the lessons that she was able to take advantage of during World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful woman.
So when your husband told you take a trip and go somewhere, go to England,
Yeah.
why did you ended up in Poland?
Oh, that's decades later. Christina Skarbek was Polish.
Okay.
And her parents, well, her mother was the daughter of a very wealthy Jewish banker, and her father was a count. So she had a certain status that she needed to maintain, but wasn't able to because her father spent all the money and left them impoverished when he died when she was about 14 years old.
Wow.
So, it's one of those things where I needed to go to Poland. As it turned out, I was laid off my last job in the United States. I was teaching at a private school in Macon, Georgia. And that was the time of the Great Recession. And so the last 20 teachers that they had hired, because, parents were pulling their kids out of school, they could no longer afford the private tuition. So they let off 20 of us teachers. Wow. And at that stage in my life, I thought, I'm never going to get another job here in the United States. There's certainly no jobs for me here in Macon, Georgia. And I want to be able to use some of what I was taught, what I've been always striving for, be somewhat of a journalist.
Right.
And if not a journalist, then an editor. An editor is good. And this is another thing that Christina was able to develop with me. When I was laid off, my eldest child was doing a National Science Foundation sabbatical in China. This is the year of the Beijing Olympics. And here he is, half a world away from me, and we're Skyping. And I said, Rick, would you believe it? They're going to be making a movie about Christina Skarbek in Poland. Is that cool or is that cool? That's pretty cool. And he said, well, who's the producer? And I said, let me look it up. Okay. Now remember, this is 2009. This is the summer of 2009 or whenever the Olympics were. And I said, the guy's name is Raphael Buks, B-U-K-S, Buks. And Rick said, okay, I've got his phone number. I'm calling him now. Just hang on. And I'm going, you're what? What? And he gets this character. He's about 30 years old. He's driving his little convertible down the street in Warsaw. And he answers his phone, and I can hear what's going on my end of the Skype conversation. And Rick said, you don't know me, Mr. Brooks, but you know my mother. Her name is Christine Skarbek. And she's written a screenplay about Christine Skarbek. And Raphael Brooks, he's 30 years old. He's driving down the street and he has a heart attack, drops the phone and says, your mother who? Your mother is who?
Wow.
This is how I got to meet the screenwriter of that particular script. And we forged a very long and enduring business relationship. And he's just a wonderful guy. His name is Dominique Rettinger. And he is the most innovative, creative person I have ever met, without a doubt. And he's allowed me to translate and edit and adapt all of his novels. Now, I've only adapted 3 of those novels, but he's now come out with 10 novels. And so I get to watch the creative process very close up, and I get to use what talent I have editing. So that's pretty good. Right. That's pretty cool. Right. And yeah, I've been having a lark doing that kind of thing. And like I say, we collaborated on a screenplay about Christina, and it's getting some traction out in Hollywood now. And
Did you know about Countess Christina Skarbek before you went there?
Oh, yeah.
You knew about her.
My grandfather, very Polish fellow, in Chicago. When Christina was murdered in London in 1952, they saved the newspaper clippings. And when I was about 14 years old or so, before my grandfather died, he handed me those clippings. And so I knew something about the woman, but it really got started when I went off to that UK trip in 1990 and started being able to talk to her, all of her wartime associates who were still alive. Mm-hmm. Just a fabulous, when you're growing up in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois, who would have thought?
Right. It's kind of like you found your roots somehow over there,
yes.
Right?
Yes, and so we are, there's something about our rootless existence here in the United States. We don't relish our ancestors probably the way we should. I was watching a video the other night about Indians out in, let me see, I think it's South Dakota, if memory serves me right. And, that whole society is built on what the ancestors left us to be able to do later. Right. In our generation, what can we do?
But it's so very important to know your ancestor. It's so very important.
Yeah, and this is what I discovered living 12 years in Poland. Because there's a different culture there, mm-hmm. and they are grappling with some of the same things that we are grappling with. We're trying to figure out this new global society that we now find ourselves in, whether we like it or not. There will always be a China, and China will maybe make all the things that we want to buy. I don't know. But so how do we grapple with all of that, and where do we put it into perspective so that we don't go off the deep end? And a friend of mine, when I was trying to describe this to a group, he says, you know what that is? That's noblesse oblige. And I said, you're absolutely right. I never thought of it that way. And it now occurs to me that this is the reason why I needed to live in Poland for 12 years, is so that I could understand the larger context of where we all are and how we need to confront power,
Right.
confront chaos. God knows we've got a lot going on. So this is what we are trying. I mean, if there is a message in my book, it's this: that the noblesse oblige thing is, if you can reach deep inside yourself to find that nobility of soul, you can overcome whatever obstacle they throw at you with grace and finesse.
Yes, I agree.
This is what Christina was able to do.
Right.
She was able to talk men into putting down their weapons and saying, okay, fine, we're good. Don't need to shoot at us. We're fine. And she was really, really good at it. And so, that's in a nub.
Some people have the right charisma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she certainly had that.
Yeah.
So
was your life in Poland so very different than the life here in the United States? Did you have to adapt to a few things?
Yes. The Polish people are very brusque. They've been through an awful lot. Their psyches have been damaged.
Yeah.
And they're still reeling from that. That's another reason why we're trying to get my book published over there in Poland as well.
Yeah.
It's because they need to see that mirror reflected back at them so that they understand they can have noblesse oblige too. We could all have noblesse oblige.
Yes.
Yeah. So
why don't you tell me a salient moment that you can remember of your life in Poland? Something that it really stuck with you, or something that taught you something new?
Well, there are two things that pop into my head. One is wonderful and gorgeous. I got to spend a good amount of time in the Tatra Mountains, which is absolutely fabulous. And I was happy to be with a Polish family at the time. So it was quite a lark. We did it 2 years in a row. Those people, I mean, I'm going, a couple of teenagers and a dad. His name was Roman, which is my grandfather's name. So of course I just love this man to bits because he had my grandfather's name. And they were just excellent. They're just wonderful people. They just couldn't get enough of those guys. And the other thing, which is not nearly as nice, but very soul shattering, is going to Auschwitz. And that was hairy. That was very hairy. I didn't get to go to Birkenau because they didn't have an English. I can't follow the Polish at that point. I was new to the country besides. So I had to be in an English-speaking group. And my bus group, they were all Polish. So they got to do both Auschwitz and Birkenau.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Auschwitz was more than enough for me. That was,
I imagine. Yes.
Yeah. Very hairy. A lot of my cousins and 6th degree, removed cousins, whatever, they died. They're just completely decimated the society. And that's part of the trauma that Poland is going through even yet today. They have not had a good time at all. So I really admire them They're fun to be around when we're going up the mountains.
Yeah.
And I almost died. but yeah, I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. Yeah, it's very necessary for me.
So you think after you've been there for so long, do you think your life was a real kaleidoscope?
Oh, it was a very much, yeah, definitely. Got to see and experience so many things that I would have never been able to had I stayed in Galesburg, Illinois. That's for sure. Yeah, got to Croatia. I've always loved the Adriatic. I've always dreamt about the Adriatic. So that was awesome, cool. Serbia, Budapest, gorgeous city, gorgeous city. And I taught for a short while in a town, taught English, in a town right north of Budapest, which is called Szentendre. And it turns out that that was an artistic place where, you know, it's right on the banks of the Danube. And during the 20s and the 30s, that's where all the artists would go.
Went to, yes.
And hang out their, you know, gallery paintings and whatnot. It's very much, in that respect, it's very much like the town that I was living in outside of Warsaw by the name of Konstancin, which is a marvelous place in and of itself. So I've been extraordinarily lucky. It's been quite a trip.
Did you get to learn the language?
My whole life has been quite a trip.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you get to learn the language?
Not as well as I would like. It is a very difficult language, and Poles are worse than French. They do not believe in commas. They do not believe in periods. They yakety, 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 and cannot get a word in edgewise. And they always leave you going, huh? Do that again, much slower, please. So it's it's a hard language.
It is very hard. But we have a very short time left. Just tell me, will you still go on an Uncharted pathway?
As a matter of fact, that's what I'm planning to do in the next 6 months or so. I plan to go back to Europe. This is very true. And we're trying to sort out the particulars. Don't know exactly where I'm headed, but hey, you know, it's okay.
You don't know where you're going yet?
Nope. No, I would like to be in Montpellier, France.
Yes.
That's right between the Pyrenees and the Riviera.
Yeah. Very nice.
Great.
Yes.
Wonderful place.
Wonderful place, yes.
Other options are going back to Poland, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, Croatia is now in the Schengen states.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's flexible, you know.
Yeah.
Very flexible there.
So, well,
depends on how much money I have.
I wish you good luck for the next plans that you have, and I hope you make another Uncharted pathway for yourself, so we can read about it. And in the meantime, I have to let the show go, and we are at the end. I want to thank the crew for being here and making the show happen. And thank you so much. Thank you, Christine, for coming to my show.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. And as I always say, peace, love.